just be another overview for you. But let me see if I can get Mike and Dawn up and going. I don't think I can. Oh yeah, and I'm sorry. It might say Neil, but it's actually Tara. I'm using our tech guru's Zoom account. So, this is
There
Tara.
we go. There we go. I just thought you had an interesting middle name or something. So you
Yeah.
might make the suggestion to them, if I can make a suggestion from our experience
Mm-hmm.
with Zoom, if they're having a tough time and they're connecting via the web link,
Mm-hmm.
we have found that very often we get better performance when it's like tough like this to just call in the phone number,
Yeah, I think that
and
that might be another way to do it. Yeah.
and it'll just have them as just a person, and you'll have to make sure they're unmuted on your end, but I think it'll give them easier access unless you have something they visually need to see.
Mm-hmm. We have a few of the materials, but they're the same ones that I'd emailed the other day. So as long as you guys
Yeah.
have those with you, and yeah, Thomas, this is something you've seen last year. We've made very few changes to those tools. So it's something that, yeah, as you're looking
Yes.
through it, feel free to send me an email if there's a question that you have about a change, but it'll be very familiar to you. All right.
It looks pretty much the same. I'm
Okay.
not anticipating issues.
Good deal. Well, then I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that those who are logging in can see the materials. And I just have an overview here of the COC program competition guidelines. And I'm going to give a little bit of context for those who have not yet done this before. So let me see if I can see your questions as well, because I want to make sure that I can answer any questions you guys might have. So raise your hand if there's something that comes up, and away we go. So welcome, and thank you so much for participating in this year's review and rank. And let's see, I had a message here, and I just wanted to see. Oh, I don't see anything new here. Well, I'm going to keep going, but definitely send me a message after the review and rank orientation just to let me know if there's anything. And I believe that we're still recording, so this will all be sent out. All of the cacophony in the beginning will just be added entertainment. Um, so, anywho, so as Thomas and Don know, this process is part of the COC or Continuum of Care program competition. It's an annual competition for funding for programs that provide permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing types of programs for persons who are experiencing homelessness. And it's an annual competition that's part of a big package that the Continuum of Care will submit to HUD. So it's comprised of the COC application. So that is an application that's written by the applicant. So that would be the Department of Health and Human Services in Humboldt. And it provides a lot of information about the COC and anything that has changed in the community. And another component of that is the COC project listing, or the ranked listing of projects, which is where you guys come in. You will be helping to score the projects and put them into this ranked list that will go to HUD, and it's comprised of project applications that each program will submit. That will be an attachment on the reports that you will be reviewing, and it will break them out into two tiers. So tier one will go, or programs in tier one, I'm sorry, will all compete for this annual renewal demand funding. So this amount here, and they will also compete for permanent housing bonus funding. So the renewals will, they're renewing their projects, and they're going to be reviewed and scored and prioritized in this way depending on performance. And some new programs, or programs that are applying for new projects, will be applying for this permanent housing bonus funding. So this year it's a little bit different in terms of how communities like Humboldt can break out their tiers. So for most communities, it's going to be 94% of this annual renewal demand, and the 6% will be competing as part of the larger national competition. So those will fall into tier 2, and those will may or may not be funded. And so it's always important to consider this in the review and rank process, that we're prioritizing those programs and being very strategic with this process. But for Humboldt and communities like them this year, they've actually changed the tiering a little bit. So the tiering will be the annual renewal demand for permanent supportive housing projects plus the county's HMIS, or Homeless Management Information System, project. So what that means is that we have a little bit of extra funding that's going into tier 1 in this year's competition. So for Humboldt, it comes to about maybe 16,000 extra dollars. So that's just a little nuance that's different from last year. And we're going to input all of this into our program evaluation scoring tool, or Presto, that's going to make this calculation for us. So I'm going to switch to talking about the scoring tools, but do you guys have any questions at this point?
I'm good so far.
So far, so good. All right, awesome. Well, I wanted to I'll close this now, and I will open up, let me see. Well, I thought I had the renewal project scoring tool. Or this is a new project scoring tool. Well, let me find, well, I thought I had the new project score, or the renewal project here. Apologies for that. I thought that I had this pulled up. I will go over the new project scoring tool pretty quickly. We have so far one renewal project, or one new project applying for the bonus funding, but we should have two by the end of this week. There's still some time to submit their new projects before the deadline. So this new project scoring tool has changed a little bit because this year HUD has added some new components. So we have the permanent supportive housing component that is the same. So you can apply for a project that serves 100% chronically homeless individuals. There's also the dedicated plus program component. So this was added in an attempt to make this a more flexible type of housing component going forward. So serving those who don't fit exactly into the permanent supportive housing model. They're not only restricted to those who are served typically by that program component. The rapid rehousing component, and this new joint transitional housing rapid rehousing. But so far, our two applicants are just applying for this permanent supportive housing component. So we don't need to worry about these other things on the new project scoring tool. They were just there in case we had those applicants. So don't worry about that when reviewing these materials before scoring. There are these other threshold components here that we're going to look at when we're scoring the new projects. This tool is much more subjective than the renewal tool because these are prospective programs. So there are going to be a lot of narrative components in the reports. So we're just reviewing for fidelity to the program type and whether or not they're participating in HMIS, whether they participate in coordinated entry, whether they are serving those who are eligible for their program type, whether they are in good standing with HUD, so that means that they don't have any open monitoring findings or history of any kind of grant problem. So if they were slow to expend all of their grants, that's just what that has to deal with. and whether or not they're able to rapidly implement this program. So they will have answered questions for these threshold factors. So those are things to consider. You're going to be considering not so much the project itself, but the agency overall. So we'll have interviews with them to discuss this and think about any questions that you have for them. For this scored criteria portion, the first is consistency with community needs. Overall, that's 25 points. And it's broken out into two factors. So the first is housing activities. And this will display the percentage of the grant that is going towards housing activities. So that's for leasing, rental assistance, and operations. You'll see that this is, unlike the other scores, this one is actually a scaled score, so it's more objective, and it'll point you in the direction of giving a certain amount of points, which you'll see a little bit more about that when we do the Presto walkthrough. But so if they have, for instance, 80% of their grant going towards these housing activities of leasing, rental assistance, so on and so forth, that will automatically spit out this 80 to 85% range, and they'll suggest that the tool will suggest giving 6 points for that. You also are able to give points for alignment with Housing First principles. So they've been asked how their program will comply with Housing First. That is not having any barriers to entry, including sobriety or requiring a minimum income, all of that good stuff, and you can give them 10 points. So this is much more dependent on your discretion here. For project quality, appropriateness, and readiness, this is talking about what the program will be like. It's out of 40 points. So it's talking more about like the program design overall. And it's broken out into design. So is it staffed appropriately? What is staff training like? Do clientele have any involvement in designing or operating the project? How are services delivered to the participants? Does it reflect cultural competency as well? So this one is out of 12 points, and you can consider their narrative responses here in giving those points to new projects. Housing quality. So this will talk about again, whether or not the staff are trained to meet the needs of the population, and also being sensitive to those with disabilities. How are they able to access the program? You'll want to know more about this and can think about some questions to ask them after you've read through the new project applications. Policies and procedures, this just makes sure that they have the appropriate policies and procedures for the program. Do they have, different policies for the provision of services, and is the description of this satisfying your questions here? And that one is out of, 6 points. Outcomes. So because this is a new project, it will not have outcomes yet, but they will have some projected outcomes already, and you'll want to ask them questions about whether or not these are realistic outcomes. Are they measurable? Do you think that it's able to meet this 80% maintaining permanent housing for at least 6 months threshold? So this is a HUD encouraged measure here of 80% housing stability. So we'll want to know a little bit more about that, and also their linkages to other services or agencies, whether or not they have memorandums of understanding with different service providers. So that whole thing is out of 40 points again. Budget and cost effectiveness is 15 points. So the budget information will be a part of their project application. So this is something that goes into, it's submitted to HUD in eSnaps. So they're in the process of finalizing these applications, and they'll be included in the additional materials that you can search through as you review their Presto reports. And I think we're hearing a little bit of background noise. Let me try to, well, let me see.
Sorry, I just started.
Oh yeah, no problem. Yeah,
Just
I'm in
started my
this,
car.
no problem. I'm in the screen share mode, so I'm trying to see how I can, let me see, navigate a little bit differently, but I think we're good. I think it's all good. Okay, so just to wrap up the new project scoring tool, agency capacity, we'll talk about their administrative capacity. So it's really looking at whether or not the agency has this expertise, excuse me, and experience with administering projects like this one before. Have they successfully handled other types of grants like this, or the same grants? So if this is an expansion project, which I believe both of our new project applicants are, we are really kind of considering how the expansion will expand off of the existing program. So if they've handled that one in certain ways, you would want to consider both of those projects very closely. Past performance is also in a similar vein here. You're going to be looking at whether or not they have served this population successfully in the past, and their ability to carry out this type of work in the future. So these were, this was a tool approved by the COC, so that's pretty similar to last year's, except for these new components here. But overall, it's going to be a lot more subjective than the renewal project scoring tool, which looks at some other kind of scaled measures as well to kind of guide you in your scoring. And let me see if I can pull that one up really quickly and we can go through it. And I apologize for going through this way. You're going to see a little bit of the behind the scenes stuff going on. Nothing too scandalous, I don't think. And let me see. There we are. Bear with me just a second. Okay, so you're probably seeing it a little bit clearer now that I've pulled it up on our box application here. But this is the renewal project scoring tool. So unlike the new projects, these are ones that are being refunded. They have annual renewal demand. So you'll see in Presto that these projects all have their annual renewal demand on the side. So it'll tell you exactly how much funding these renewal projects are applying for. And they've all gone through this type of scoring process before. So the first thing that they must go through, like the new projects, is this threshold criteria. So whether or not they participate in HMIS, are they participating in coordinated entry? Thomas and Don, this is just a thing that was a minor change in the tools this year that now that coordinated entry is up and running, it's not just a commitment to participate, but they have to participate. So these are all already in the coordinated entry system. Whether or not the agency who's reapplying is in good standing with HUD, and are they serving the populations, or are they serving folks who are eligible to participate in their programs? So the outcomes scored criteria here out of 45 points, and this will be looking at the narrative responses to the project's data, as well as the data for their project that has been taken from the annual performance report that was submitted to HUD. So these reports have information that the programs have been submitting in the Homeless Management Information System. It's all that client data goes into this database, and it gives us these numbers that produce the outcomes. So we have utilization as our first score here. It's out of 10 points, and we want to know if the program or the project is operating at capacity. So if they have a certain amount of beds or units, we want to know how consistently those units were filled throughout the year. So this is a scaled score. So it's one of these objective measures that I was telling you guys about. And we have a performance measure in the scoring factor in Presto that will populate a number based on what percentage the utilization is measuring. So if they were only at maybe 60% capacity, the scoring factor would suggest that you give them a score of 2 points. But you're absolutely able to adjust these scores depending on the project type. So it's always good to be aware that perhaps the project is serving folks who are more difficult to serve. They have higher needs, and that might have resulted in lower utilization. So that's absolutely something that you can consider and in your decision to award more points. And you'll also have the option to take notes about that and let us know during scoring, during review and rank next Tuesday that was the reason why you gave them more points. That's absolutely possible. So housing stability. This is also measuring some of the data from the annual performance report. It shows how many of the project participants have remained stably housed in that permanent housing project for at least 12 months, or if there are what we call leavers, the people who have left the project, whether or not they have exited to another permanent destination. So that is out of 20 points. You can award points up to 20 points. But again, you're looking at that number that that HUD has encouraged folks to strive for, which is at least 80% housing stability. We're going to also look at the income for different participants, so whether or not they have had any success in connecting with different types of income. So that could be non-employment income, such as benefits, our cash income as well, and the caveat of the outcomes measurement components here, that these folks are harder to serve. They may not have substantial increases in income. So that's absolutely something to consider. But it is not a scaled score. It's out of 5 points. So depending on what you think, you can definitely ascribe that to them. Mainstream services as well. This is connecting folks with non-cash benefits. So we're looking at this percentage of those who accessed non-cash mainstream benefits. So this goes to how well the project is able to provide those linkages to services, which is out of 10 points. Budget and cost effectiveness here. This also will come from the project application that the project will submit to HUD, and it's going to be a part of their additional materials that you can click through and look at their budget to see if it is clearly articulated. And you can ask them any questions about that as well. Cost effectiveness. So this is another component similar to the new project scoring tool. You're seeing if project salaries for staff are competitive. You're seeing if the special needs of clients are being served, and noting that, like the other outcomes measures, that some populations are harder to serve and are more expensive to serve than others. So at your discretion, you can award them up to 12 points. Agency capacity is out of 35 points. So this is also looking at the agency overall, not just the project itself. And agencies will have submitted information on any outstanding HUD findings or resolutions of monitoring findings, whether or not there have been any deobligations of HUD funds, and also whether or not they've been drawing down from their grant regularly. So these materials will also be part of the additional materials link, and you can view those. HMIS data quality. This score takes from the annual performance report, and it shows whether most, or I guess how much of the client data has been entered into this homeless management information system. So it's going to show if there's any missing data, and it's going to show not the percentage of missing data, but the percentage of complete data. So depending on that percentage, you can award up to 12 points there. Policies and procedures, this is very similar to the new project scoring tool. So is the agency able to train its staff to ensure the highest quality of care for participants? Do they have any consumer satisfaction surveys, or do they get consumer feedback in a way? You know, what are their procedures around that? And also, do they have any policies and procedures around data as well, and monitoring that performance? So those are all of the scored factors for different parts of the renewal projects, but we also have this bonus points portion, which last year this contained an additional factor for transitional housing. But since after last year's competition, we no longer have any transitional housing in Humboldt, this will likely be just kind of, yeah, exactly what it is. 5 bonus points for being permanent housing. So as we have only permanent supportive housing, that's kind of a gimme. All right, any questions about the renewal project scoring tool?
No, I'm good.
All righty, sounds good. Then I'm gonna go to the Presto login here. So I've already entered all of your information around being a panelist here in Presto. And thanks, Mike. I see we have no questions so far. Definitely let me know, and absolutely follow up via phone or email. You can always reach me this week. Other than Thursday this week, I will be happy to answer your questions. I will be out in Sacramento. All right, so I'm going to log into Presto as Thomas, and you will all receive an email with your individual usernames, which are just your email addresses here, and your passwords. So you all have individual passwords, and I'm not going to show you what Thomas's is. Let's see if I can get in. Worked this morning, and we're in. Okay, so this is the interface that you'll see when you join as a panelist. So it's pretty simple, and you will have a login here on the right hand side. It'll say your name, and that's where you can access your profile as a panelist. But we're not going to go to this reports, even though that looks very tempting. We're gonna head over here to Humboldt fiscal year 2017 NOFA. So here is your panelist instructions page. As you can see, the scoring is closed right now because we do not yet have all of our new projects in Presto yet. They still have a couple more days to send in their requests for information. So we have one that is in here, but scoring is not open yet. But you will absolutely be able to look through these reports and write some comments in the notes section, and I'll take you through that and show you. So here we have some materials that you can view. So this is the review and rank interview schedule that we discussed briefly. It takes you to this box link. And as you know, yep, review and rank next Tuesday. We're starting at 8:30 in the morning, giving you some time to get settled in and have some discussion. And let's see. Yep, and we'll go through Presto, and you can definitely put in your comments about different projects, Mike. But scoring hopefully will be open Friday. So after everything is in on Thursday, after we've finished up with the new project applications, making sure that those all go into Presto, we will open scoring then. And so you'll definitely want to take a look at these project reports for the following projects. So we have Arcata House Partnership. They're going to interview with us at 9 a.m. on Tuesday. And they're going to be discussing their renewal projects and their new project. Mike is referring to pre-scoring here, and Dawn, I can't remember if we did this last year, if we did much pre-scoring beforehand. You do not need to pre-score. You're certainly welcome to if you would like to. If you don't want to do it in Presto, you can also just do it on a Word doc or something like that. But you're not required to pre-score. It's just if you want to enter those scores and any notes just to refresh your recollection during the review and rank panel on Tuesday. But we will be facilitating the inputting of scores. So myself and my colleague Nika, she is very adept at Presto, and she has also worked in Humboldt as well. Briefly, our teams have kind of tag team Humboldt, so she's very familiar with the projects as well. So we're going to be guiding you through these interviews and discussions, and during the discussions here, so from 9:30 to 10, and then 10:45 to 11:15, we wanted to make sure you guys had a good amount of time to discuss the projects before and after the different interviews, and then we'll do scoring, and then we saved an hour after all of the projects have been reviewed to go through that scoring again and to hammer out that ranked list. So that is how next Tuesday will go down. Let me see. For some reason, it kicked me out of Presto. There we go. All right. So we have the renewal project scoring tool as well that you can click on if you just want to refresh your memory about the factors. The factors will also be in the reports while you're looking at them. So they will have a gray box that has a couple of other little boxes with numbers on the side. I'll take you through all of those so you can see them as well. This is our list of projects. These are the renewals. Apartments First, Housing Humboldt Expansion, or Humboldt Housing, sorry. All of these are renewals this year. Yes, yep, and we are home base. Let me go through and read. So the panel discussion will be the three of you to decide as the decision makers about scoring, which scores to give which scores to give the applicants. Homebase is there to provide some context around the projects. We've been working with these projects for a number of years, so we have some regional context about them, and also to help with that ranked list at the end of the review and rank scoring process. So just strategizing how projects are falling into tier 1 and tier 2, and considering different things to best meet the needs of folks experiencing homelessness in Humboldt. There will not be any other people besides the panelists, so yourselves and myself and Nika in the room during that discussion. So the only other folks who are going to be in the room are the representatives from the different projects during their interviews. But once their interview has finished, it's completed, they're going to step outside, and you guys will be able to deliberate in private. Yep. In some communities, they do not do it that way. In Las Vegas, everything's open to the public. I think this way is pretty clear cut. All right, so we have a number of projects here that are renewals, but they will not be scored because they do not yet have a year's worth of data. So they did not have an annual performance report generated for this competition. So that would be Best Chance Rapid Rehousing, the Coordinated Entry Project as well. The Humboldt County HMIS is a prioritized project here, so it doesn't get scored, but it goes into that tier 1 range. And Project Heart Expansion, which was a new project last year. So our new projects this year will be Apartment First expansion and the Humboldt Housing Expansion 2. So you'll see, yep, there was a Humboldt Housing Expansion up here. This one will be demarcated in this way, so we can kind of keep them parsed out and we don't get confused. But that project, Humboldt Housing Expansion 2, has not been added yet to this list of project applicants since we're waiting on their materials, which are forthcoming. So I will take you through Apartments First. So you'll view the reports just by clicking here. And Presto likes to think for a few seconds. So if it doesn't happen right away, don't worry. Nothing is broken. But yeah, we're just gonna wait a little bit and it will generate this report that has all of the information. So the responses from the project's request for information, which correspond to the scoring tools as well. So here you can see Apartments First is a permanent supportive housing project. It's located here. And they've provided a narrative response about the project overview. So to get yourself acquainted with the project, I would read here first. And those additional materials I talked about, so any HUD monitoring findings, audits, information like that, as well as their project applications that will be submitted to HUD shortly. Those are all available here. If you just click on this link, you can see more about the project location. And this program at a glance has a lot of information to keep in mind. You don't have to do anything with this information, but it just lets you know this is the amount of grant that they currently have, how much they have expended so far from that grant, that they had 33 households broken out in this way. And that they serve chronically homeless individuals and families. So this information is all just to give you context about this project. And then we jump right into these scored factors here. So they've been given a chance to explain some of their outcomes in this way. And we've included these graphs which break down that information from the annual performance reports. So showing that bed utilization, on 4 nights throughout the year has been this, and it will give you for the scored factor here. So 1A utilization, it tells you that they were above 100% performance. So that's really good. Yeah, it's probably because of leasing up, so they're able to serve some more clients with their funds from HUD. So that's a good thing. So you'll be able to see these little performance things that are, I think they're all blue, and some of them you can hover over like this. If you hover over the points here, you can see that this was a scaled factor. So if you want to know more about how this number came to give this score of 10, that was already pre-populated here. You can check it that way, and you can change this score depending on whether or not you think you want to award more points because this is a harder to serve population. It's at your discretion. But you're able to enter notes here. So if you wanted to type a note to yourself, you can enter a note, something like this, and then you click out. This is automatically saved. So there's no save button that you need to press. Obviously, if you're experiencing any kind of difficulties with that, just let us know, but it should work. Yeah, so that is Presto. Are there any questions so far about that? All righty. Yep, I think I heard someone, but yeah, let me know if you have any questions afterwards. Yeah, once we've concluded the orientation, I'll send an email with all of your logins so that you're able to go in and start viewing these reports. And yes, you'll have a week to look at the reports, and we'll let you know as soon as possible when the newest new project application report is available, and we will enable scoring after that. So if you'd like to pre-score, you're absolutely welcome to do that. And yeah, and let us know if you have any questions. Thank you so much for attending the orientation today. I really appreciate your patience with all the technical difficulties. Yeah. Any final words from anyone? Any questions? Alrighty. Well, thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Yep, absolutely. Looking forward to seeing you next week.
Yes,
Take care.
look forward to it. Thank you.
Awesome. Bye-bye.